looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Good evening, I'm Alma Angeles and you're watching ASEAN in Focus on tonight's headlines. Heavy rains hit Claveria and Calayan group of islands, damaging houses, submerging roads and forcing over 900 people to evacuate as Typhoon Neneng moved westward. And in Thailand, a Phuket town is suffering the worst flood seen in 30 years. Continuous heavy rain overnight has left many areas flooded. President Joe Biden has no plans to meet with Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Salman at an upcoming G20 summit in Bali, Indonesia. And experts, policymakers, and practitioners gathered for the symposium on ASEAN identity and strengthening ASEAN Republic of Korea cooperation now and beyond at the ASEAN Secretariat in Indonesia.
However, his efforts.
And first in our news, the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council has recorded over 300 families who left their homes in Region 2 and took shelter in various evacuation centers due to Typhoon Neneng on Sunday. Take a look. In its recent situation report, the NDRRMC said 337 families or 960 individuals preemptively evacuated in the municipalities of Lalo, Camalinigan, Bagao, Santa Praquedes, Bugay, Lasam, Balesteros, and Calayan in Cagayan Province. The most evacuees came from the municipality of Bagao, with 252 families or 717 individuals. No casualty was reported so far, according to the NDRRMC. Neneng already moved westward or west-northwestward over the West Philippine area Monday early morning. In a related news, heavy rains had hit Claveria and Calayan group of islands, damaging homes, houses, submerging roads, and forcing over 900 people to evacuate as it moved westward. Take a look. This video from a resident of Claveria town showed widespread flooding and a partially submerged home with trees blown by strong wind as Nesat or Neneng drenched the province with heavy rains. This is from the Claveria Valley Cups. Nesat or Neneng exited the Philippine area of responsibility as it moved towards the South China Sea, according to the Philippine Weather Bureau, PAGASA. Meanwhile, some residents in the province of Ilocos Norte are spending the night without electricity as Typhoon Neneng flooded several households, uprooted trees, toppled electric posts on Sunday. In its situational report, the Ilocos Norte Electric Cooperative said at least 7 out of the 21 towns and 2 cities of Ilocos Norte have no electricity, and these are the towns of Adams, Bangi, Burgos, Carasi, Dumalneg, Pasukin, and Pagudpud. As of 3 p.m. Sunday, Ilocos Norte is 64% to totally energized, according to Noel Andres, Information Officer of INEC. Power supply in all the affected areas is expected to be fully restored once the weather permits. In another development, the Department of Public Works and Highways on Sunday temporarily closed a national highway in Pagudpud town in Ilocos Norte. In a road advisory, Jocelyn Owamar, the PWH Region 1 Maintenance Management Section Chief, said clearing operations will resume if deemed safe to operate. While there's no quick fix solution to the problem, Ilocos Norte 1st District Representative Ferdinand Alexander Marcos said earlier that the government is eyeing the construction of another Pagudpud viaduct to do away with the landslide. Marcos said the administration can look for possible funding and implement it on a multi-year project. Motorists are advised to take safety precaution if they need to take the alternate route from Ilocos Norte to Region 2 via the Ilocos Norte-Apayao Road and vice versa. Meanwhile, government assets are in place to deal with the aftermath of the severe tropical storm Neneng. That is according to President Marcos Jr. On Sunday, the president assured Filipinos primary needs of those affected, especially food, safe drinking water, and electricity, will be provided by the government. To the provinces in the north that have felt the effects, help is on the way, he said on his official Twitter account. He encouraged the public to follow the directives of their respective local government units and municipal disaster risk reduction and management councils. Neneng is the 14th tropical cyclone for 2022 and the second for October. Now, Phuket town has suffered the worst flooding seen in 30 years. Take a look. Continuous heavy rain overnight has left many areas across Phuket flooded, with major roads affected, streets cut off in individual areas, and in Phuket town, a major landslip bringing earth across a main road in Kamala. According to the Bangkok Post, the rare flooding in Phuket on Sunday continued to disrupt air travelers as passengers missed their flights out of the resort city. Phuket Airport has requested travelers to leave for the airport 3 to 4 hours before their scheduled departures after torrential rain throughout the night submerged parts of the island. The famous neighborhood in downtown Phuket was one of the worst affected. In tonight's other news, 16 Thai nationals allegedly doing forced labor for a Philippine offshore gaming operator, Pogo, were rescued in Pampanga before dawn on Saturday. NCRPO Chief PB Gen John L.C. Estomo announced that the operation was conducted following a letter from Minister Councilor Critrea Lecao of Royal Embassy addressed to the Director DI and SPD District Director on October 13 regarding a report that about 16 Thai nationals who were allegedly being forced to work beyond their work hours without overtime pay from their employer, Shidai KG Technology. However, it was found out that the passports of the victims were also being held by their employer. The employer later on agreed to return the passports to the Thai embassy on October 17. The rescued employees will not file charges anymore as they prefer to immediately return home, according to the SPD report. The death toll from a fire that ripped through a Thai nightclub in early August has risen to 25, with 8 victims still receiving medical treatment. The blaze broke out on August 5 at nightclub Mountain Bee in Thailand's eastern Chonburi province, roughly 150 kilometers southeast of Bangkok. Authorities found 13 charred bodies inside the venue after the fire, and 12 more people have died from their injuries since then. Chonburi province's public relations office said the latest victim was a woman who died at a local hospital on Sunday. According to local media, she was 26. 8 people remain in 8 different hospitals, with 2 of them on ventilators. Around 40 people were injured in the inferno, all of them believed to be Thai. The fire erupted in the early hours with flammable foam on the club's walls, accelerating the blaze, which took firefighters 3 hours to extinguish. And now, this is the first state visit to Vietnam by a foreign head of state since the 13th National Party Congress, and the first foreign trip of the Singaporean president since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The visit of the Singaporean president takes place as both countries are heading for the 50th founding anniversary of their strategic partnership. She will also host reception for the Secretary of Hanoi Municipal Party Committee, visit the Vietnam-Singapore Industrial Park, meet with leaders of the northern province of Bac Ninh, and engage in several activities in Ho Chi Minh. The visit is expected to contribute to consolidating political trust and fostering cooperation across fields between the two countries. In other news, President Joe Biden has no plans to meet with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at an upcoming G20 summit in Indonesia, according to U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. Stormy U.S.-Saudi relations have seen new strain over Riyadh's recent support for oil production cuts, with Biden warning of unspecified consequences. The move last week by OPEC Plus, composed of the Riyadh-led OPEC cartel and an additional group of 10 exporters headed by Russia, would reduce global output by up to 2 million barrels per day from November. Now that could send energy prices soaring amid an energy crisis triggered by the war in Ukraine, and as inflation worry American voters prepare to cast ballots in midterm elections. The move was widely seen as a diplomatic slap in the face since President Biden traveled to Saudi Arabia in July and met with the Crown Prince, despite vowing to make the kingdom an international pariah following the 2018 murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Saudi officials have defended the move as motivated purely by economics and not politics. Singapore's economy expanded by 4.4% on year in the third quarter of 2022, the government said, while warning of ongoing global challenges such as inflation. Economists often see the performance of the city-state's open, trade-driven economy as a barometer for global trading activity. The Q3 reading was slightly lower than the previous quarter's 4.5%, according to advanced estimates released by the Trade Ministry. The Monetary Authority of Singapore said the expansion was underpinned in part by a stronger than expected recovery in the domestic-oriented and travel-related sectors as more COVID restrictions abroad and locally were relaxed. Singapore has removed all COVID restrictions except for mask wearing inside buses and metro trains after vaccinating most of its population of nearly 6 million and deciding to live with the coronavirus. On a quarter-to-quarter basis, Singapore's economy expanded by 1.5%, avoiding a technical recession by reversing the 0.2% contraction in Q2. Meanwhile, Asian equities dropped Monday, tracking a sell-off on Wall Street as last week's rally ran out of steam on fresh worries about rising interest rates and surging inflation. The pound rose, however, after British Prime Minister Liz Truss replaced her finance minister, and speculation swirled that she would now roll back on more of the debt-fueled tax-cutting budget that sent shivers through finance markets. The health gains Asian markets enjoyed on Friday were largely wiped out in early trade as expectations about elevated prices and central banks' move to rein them in continued to fan recession fears. All three main indexes on Wall Street finished sharply lower Friday, and Asia followed suit Monday. Hong Kong shed more than 1%, and Shanghai was also in the red, with Chinese President Xi Jinping on the weekend reasserting his commitment to the zero-COVID strategy of lockdowns that has hammered the economy this year. There were also losses in Tokyo, Sydney, Seoul, Singapore, Taipei, Jakarta, and Wellington. All eyes were on one man as China's ruling party marks the start of its closely watched National Congress. The once every 5 years affair is set to be a historic one as Chinese President Xi Jinping is likely to be given an unprecedented third term at the helm. Mr. Xi took to the podium and presented a glowing report card on his party's continued efforts to eradicate COVID, which are placing heavy curbs on people's lives and is hammering the nation's economy. He also focused on two of China's most sensitive security and sovereignty issues in relation to Hong Kong after democracy protests were crushed there, and on the self-ruled island of Taiwan. Take a look.
特别是面对突如其来的新冠肺炎疫情，我们坚持人民至上、生命至上，坚持动态清零不动摇，开展抗击疫情人民战争、总体战、阻击战，最大限度保护了人民生命安全和身体健康，增强实现中华民族伟大复兴的精神社会主义文化发展道路，增强文化自信。马克思主义是我们立法。面对台独势力分裂活动和外部势力干涉台湾事务的严重挑衅，我们坚决开展反分裂、反干涉重大斗争，展示了我们维护国家主权和领土完整、反对台独的坚强决心和强大能力。面对香港局势动荡变化，我们依照宪法和基本法，有效实施对特别行政区的全面管制权，落实爱国者治港原则，香港局势实现由乱到治的重大转折。
Should everything go to plan for President Xi, the 69-year-old will be endorsed as the party's general secretary after the week-long meeting ends, cementing his position as China's most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. President Xi and the party's other top brass are likely to be unveiled on October 23, the day after the Congress closes. If picked as party leader for another 5-year term as expected, he is almost certain to be elected president at the annual meeting of China's National People's Congress in March. In tonight's other news, experts, policymakers, and practitioners gathered for the symposium on ASEAN identity and strengthening ASEAN Republic of Korea cooperation, now and beyond at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta, Indonesia. In his opening address, Secretary General of ASEAN, Dato Lim Jak Hoi, posed a pertinent question. What makes you proud to be an ASEAN citizen? Take a look.
Despite the trying times caused by COVID-19, our work to enhance ASEAN awareness and foster a regional identity among ASEAN people have continued. However, this effort has not been without challenges. Based on a survey response, there's still much work ahead of us that we need to do in order to inspire the people in our region to identify themselves as ASEAN citizens. The poll on ASEAN Awareness commissioned by the ASEAN Secretariat in 2018 shows that while 96% of respondents are aware of ASEAN, less than a third of them know much about the ASEAN community building process. The culture and creative industry are another key avenue to disseminate information about ASEAN, including its rich history and heritage. I urge the symposium to consider a more innovative way to expand our people's awareness of ASEAN.
ASEAN identity will create a stronger sense of we feeling and ASEAN-ness and togetherness, which are essential to this building process. We work together to give the impetus to this process with a sense of a mission and responsibility to our citizens.
We no longer are simply an imagined community. We do have shared values, and that has been shown in the way we have behaved in relation to geopolitical interests and concerns. We do have shared values already. I think what needs to be constructed a little more is our commitment to a rules-based order. because many of our countries are still in the traditional cultural sort of baggage of things that need to be transformed. I think we need to face the fact that even within our nation states, the nation state is actually an artificial imposition from our colonial powers. The fact is that, as Professor Dowie has said, I mean, the nation state is still a work in progress. Even in our countries, there are lots of marginal communities. All our indigenous tribes and everything are not really part of this national community. So I think it's very important to think about what are the rules-based order. They need to be defined.
During the breakout sessions, participants shared their views on ways to amplify ASEAN awareness and to foster ASEAN identity. The participants recognized that schools and media play significant roles in telling the ASEAN history and achievements. In closing the symposium, Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community, Ekafab Pantayong, encouraged the participants to act as ASEAN's intermediary and continue to champion the awareness of ASEAN among friends and family members. The International School for Sustainable Tourism, the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, and the Southeast Asian Regional Center for Graduate Study and Research in Agriculture forged an agreement to collaborate in the International Ecotourism Travel Mart, or IETM, the first ever green travel mart and selling fair in the world, organized by the Asian Ecotourism Network. Take a look.
Ecotourism Network, AEN. The International Ecotourism Travel Mart, IETM, is the very first green travel mart and selling fair in the world, presented by AEN, a regional initiative of the Global Ecotourism Network.
Mabuhay! This is a beautiful greeting by Filipinos to visitors and fellow countrymen alike. It wishes you good life filled with happiness and joy. The IETM 2022 brings two major historical events. First, it is the first green travel mart, and it is also the 20th anniversary of the United Nations Declaration of International Year of Ecotourism.
The mission in AEN is to connect all the stakeholders together for knowledge transfer, consulting, business development, and marketing so that we can all achieve sustainability.
We are committed to provide more hands-on connection and relevant opportunity for working together at a regional scale.
IETM is an annual event especially designed to bring together delegates and exhibitors to showcase products and services that have a strong ecotourism component, green technology, and sustainable green practices.
The spotlight of the event is on ecotourism, an important concept for a region rich in diverse natural and cultural resources.
The biggest ecotourism-focused fair is set to be held on March 29 to April 2 next year in Cavite, Philippines. This celebration of green technology and sustainable practices in the tourism industry signifies an opportunity towards a better, normal, and a more resilient community as the world slowly reopens, according to a news release on Thursday. For a region as naturally diverse and culturally rich as the ASEAN, tourism contributes significantly to economic growth and local livelihoods. Acknowledging the tourism sector's vital role in recovery, the ASEAN has declared the revival of the tourism sector as an imperative in the region's overall recovery efforts in its comprehensive framework. One of the benefits of Rsf Agreement is the reduction or elimination of import tariffs for products eligible for preferential tariffs treatment. Let's learn more from this video. Take a look.
One of the benefits of the Rsf Agreement is the reduction or elimination of import tariffs for products eligible for preferential tariff treatment, satisfying the rules of origin requirement. To know your product's import tariff, you first need to identify its tariff classification, or HS code. You can do this by either 1. Checking the Tariff Finder or FTA portal of the RCEP countries, or the new ASEAN Tariff Finder, which is expected to be launched in the near future. 2. Consulting with Government Issuing Authority or tariff classification experts. Or 3. Getting an advance ruling. Let's take a look at an example. Carolina is from the Philippines and planning to import rear-view mirrors from Vietnam. Based on the tariff schedules, Carolina will be charged with 20% duties for the first 3 years. But Carolina can enjoy a cheaper tariff from year 3 onwards. It is worth noting that some countries in the RCEP have the same tariffs for products imported from any RCEP countries. These countries only have one tariff schedule for the other 14 countries. This means that if you are importing a product into these countries from any RCEP country, you will be charged the same tariff. Other countries charge different import tariffs depending on the product's origin. These countries have more than one tariff schedule. This means you may pay different tariffs if you are importing honey into Indonesia from China or from Thailand. On the other hand, Singapore has made commitments to bind its zero tariffs under RCEP. If you are importing into any ASEAN member states, you should look at the schedules for ASEAN member states. Let's look at another example, where all goods and materials are eligible for the preferential rate under RCEP. Meet Grace, an entrepreneur based in Singapore producing packaged food. She imports mangoes from Thailand and sugar from China, processing them as dried mangoes to export to countries including Indonesia, Japan, and Cambodia. Since Singapore does not charge import duties, Grace can import the mangoes and sugar duty-free. But when exporting to Indonesia, Japan, and Cambodia, Grace's dried mangoes are subject to different tariffs. After finding the tariff classification for the product in these countries, Grace learns that her dried mangoes are subject to 20% import tariffs in Indonesia, 7% in Cambodia, and 0% in Japan. When importing into RCEP countries, always check the Rsf Agreement and find out if and how you can enjoy reduced tariffs. See you in our next video.
As my usual habit, I'd like to end the day on a positive note. Let's encourage and build each other up so that no one is left behind. And that's it for tonight's broadcast of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angela. Stay in the news because we live in extraordinary times. Good night.